All right, joining us now is John Sitilides. He's a geopolitical strategist with the Trilogy Advisors. John, nice to have you back on the show with us. John, as we know, Russia has really been playing all sides of this conflict. Of course, strongly supporting Syria's Assad, waiting to reap the rewards of that. It's an ally of Iran's, but it also has strong diplomatic ties with Israel. So has the time come where Russia needs to definitively choose a side in all of this?
No. Russia will use its maximum leverage with all of the parties here. Remember that the disarray that we've seen in Syria and in broader relations in the Middle East have very much been to Russia's advantage in the last 3 to 4 years. And the most important thing for Syria, I believe, for Russia in Syria, Michelle, I believe, is first of all to make sure that Russia is able to maintain the lock on the 49-year leases for the new air and naval bases in Syria on the Mediterranean coast, to be able to project power in Syria, in the Middle East, and in the Mediterranean north of Suez for many decades to come. I think they see Assad as the strong man that's most reliable right now, but I don't think they've really invested in him so much as much as anyone who can help to make sure that the leases are maintained. But how do they make sure that Iran is not causing more trouble than needs to be had with countries such as Israel, with which Russia has very hard-headed, practical, diplomatic, and military technology relations in ways that are very beneficial for both countries? So,
John, if Israel continues to disregard Russian requests or demands to stop striking those Iranian military positions in Syria, which Israel sees as a serious security threat, how do you see Russia responding? Just letting it go?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, Russia, first of all, has its global reputation to maintain, and B, one of the reasons that Assad's been able to maintain power is because Russia has used air power against anti-Assad forces with utter ruthlessness and brutality. So the Russians have a reputation globally and regionally to maintain. But as I said before, they also are very, very practical in their approach to Israel. They recognize that Israel has very profound security interests regarding Iranian forces encroaching on the Israeli border, arming Hezbollah, putting guided munition systems now on the rockets to improve their accuracy in the event of a conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. And I think they're going to look to see how realistically they can cooperate, ensure continued deconfliction between Russian and Israeli forces, especially in southern Syria, and look to see to what extent Russia can bear some influence on Iran to not antagonize Israel the way that it has done so with near impunity for the last several years, save for Israeli military strikes against Iranian forces.
So, John, if after this meeting Israel strikes Iranian targets in Syria again, you expect Russia to do what?
I don't expect much of a response from Russia. Russia needs to make sure that its forces are safe, that there are no more accidents as took place in September of last year when a Russian plane was shot down by Syrian anti-aircraft batteries that thought they were targeting Israeli planes. So Putin doesn't want to see any more of his men being killed. He doesn't want to see equipment lost. And I think improving mill-to-mill relations between Moscow and Jerusalem is going to be critical here in improving not necessarily the cooperation, but avoiding mistakes, avoiding miscalculations, and protecting Israeli and Russian forces operating independently in Syrian skies.
All right. John, stay right there. We want to get your take on a major shakeup in Iran's government and Iran's foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, abruptly announcing his resignation on Monday in a post on social media. The face of Iran's foreign policy apologized for the shortcomings during his time as foreign minister, but Iran's President Hassan Rouhani rejected Zarif's resignation. It's unclear if that means that Zarif will return to his post. Our senior Middle East correspondent, Mohammed Al-Qasim, has more.
Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif urged Iranian diplomats not to resign en masse following his shock announcement. Javad Zarif, the architect of Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers, unexpectedly took to Instagram Monday to announce his resignation.
Many thanks for the generosity of the dear and brave people of Iran and its authorities over the past 67 months. I sincerely apologize for the inability to continue serving and for all the shortcomings during my service. Be happy and worthy.
A key player in the Iranian government for years, Javad Zarif said his resignation came in defense of his ministry and its vital role in protecting the country's national security. However, according to Iranian media, it was pressure from the hardliners and not being informed of the surprise visit to Tehran Monday of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu weighed in on the resignation, tweeting, "Zarif is gone. Good riddance. As long as I am here, Iran will not have nuclear weapons." Residents of the capital Tehran expressed concern to Zarif's resignation, one suggesting it may have come because of pressure by the conservatives from inside the country, while another stressed that the resignation is not in the country's best interest right now. For his part, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani attempted damage control by thanking his foreign minister publicly in a speech on Tuesday.
I would like to thank Dr. Zarif. Today, our primary front line against America is secured by the Foreign Ministry.
Zarif came under criticism from anti-Western hardliners in the Islamic Republic after the United States pulled out of the agreement last May and reimposed sanctions, throwing Iran's economy into chaos. Zarif was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs in August 2013, 2 years before Iran agreed to scale back its uranium enrichment program and pledged not to develop nuclear weapons. Mohammed Al-Qasim, I-24 News.
All right, we're back with John Sitilides, geopolitical strategist with Trilogy Advisors. John, there seems to be some concern that Zarif's exit would further weaken the government's say over Iran's foreign policy, which is already largely determined by the supreme leader and then heavily influenced by the military. But to what degree does it matter who the foreign minister is? How much of a role does Zarif really play in foreign policy making in Tehran?
I think he had zero influence in Tehran, Michelle, but Zarif was important in terms of fooling Americans and fooling Europeans and fooling those around the world who thought they were dealing with a regime whose behavior could be moderated if this nuclear agreement, this nuclear deal could be implemented. And it clearly has not been the case. And Zarif, it turns out, is exposed as nothing more than a front man for what continues to be the world's leading sponsor of international terrorism. He lied and he deceived where it was necessary, and oftentimes he was cut out of the loop completely on foreign policy decisions, and they could come back to his interlocutors in Europe and in the United States, shrug his shoulders, and say, I didn't know that all of these nefarious things were taking place. So I think that's where Iranian foreign policy and whatever prestige they think they may have outside of Iran may be affected. But I think this will have no difference at all in terms of Tehran's national security and defense policies emanating from, as you said correctly, the office of Supreme Leader Khamenei.
So, John, if Zarif is gone, then I understand from your comments that it could be easier for the U.S. to get more support with international sanctions against Iran. If he was largely the reason that the Europeans were cooperating due to his diplomatic skills, would a different foreign minister perhaps help the Israeli and U.S. agenda against Iran?
It could, Michelle. I think it depends on what kind of a demeanor that individual might bring. Give Zarif credit. He spoke fluent English. He was trained in the United States. He was a fox. He was very, very clever and very charming with his interlocutors outside of Tehran. If they're able to find somebody with that kind of cultivation to succeed him, that individual could do the kind of job that Zarif was able to accomplish over the last 6 years. If it's somebody who's much more open and much more blatant in terms of his objectives, it could be highly problematic for Iran on the international stage.
All right, John, thank you so much. John Sitilides, appreciate it.